Thanks for joining us. My name is Umberto Speranza, Assistant Vice President of Government Affairs at Unum. Today, we're going to talk about the 2024 election and what it means for paid family medical leave in America. We know how active the states have been on this front in recent years, but how might the outcome of November's election change the paid leave landscape? We'll dive into the policies on both sides of the aisle and how each might impact your business and your employees. At Unum, paid leave is what we do. It's core to our mission, and after 175 years of helping the working world thrive throughout life's moments, we're proud to be a part of the solution. I'm joined by my colleague, Darius Freeman, Assistant Vice President and Legal Counsel.
Although many of us think of paid leave as a more recent trend, the PFML system has a long history. First, state-level disability programs actually date back to the 1940s. And those original states started to add paid family leave to their programs in the early 2000s, California being the first. Since then, a rapid evolution has resulted in 10 states establishing mandatory paid family and medical leave programs since 2020. A common thread in these programs is a recognition of the importance of a public-private partnership. In fact, the most successful PFML programs have been those that have leveraged the existing benefits infrastructure of the private market. So where are we now in this continuum? In the new year, as we prepare for a new Congress and a new administration, the states are charging full speed ahead. Delaware, Maine, and Maryland all began taking contributions in 2025. And then in 2026, those 3 states, plus Minnesota, will start paying benefits. This is just what is already in flight. We expect legislative activity emerging from other states interested in enacting PFML programs. New Mexico, Michigan, Pennsylvania, and Hawaii, just to name a few. But what about federal paid leave?
We'll begin with what a potential Harris-Walz administration might mean for paid family medical leave in America. Most notably, their platform calls for a national comprehensive program. But what does that actually mean? We'll talk about the options. The selection of Tim Walz adds a compelling dynamic, a governor from a PFML state who signed a program into law in Minnesota just last year. He ranks PFML at the top of the Democrats' to-do list if they take power in Washington. One thing is clear. On paper, it is shaping up to be the most pro-paid family leave ticket in history, but will it be able to deliver? If Democrats take the House, hold the Senate, and Harris the White House, Darius is going to walk you through what we might be looking at from a policy perspective.
The Family Act would be a natural starting point for Democrats. It was introduced in 2017, but has evolved since then. One thing that hasn't changed, there is no private option in the Family Act. It's a government-run public program out of the Social Security Administration. But the most recent version of the Family Act does allow states with existing paid leave programs to continue. What role the private sector would play in the remaining states would be a major question. And the cost of enacting such a sweeping mandate might mean that other approaches will be considered. One of those options is the Building an Economy for Families Act, which came from the Build Back Better package in the early days of the Biden administration. It called for a government-run PFML benefit program while still allowing existing state programs to continue as legacy states. But unlike the Family Act, employers could seek private coverage to satisfy the requirements and in turn receive partial reimbursement. While that fell short of passage, it did reemerge in late 2021 as part of the infrastructure deal. This time, they decreased the duration significantly to just 4 weeks, while the legacy state concept and partial reimbursement remained. This too was struck from the final deal, but it could also be a starting point for the PFML debate in 2025.
On the Republican side, we can look back to 2016. Paid family leave was elevated by the Trump administration in ways that we hadn't seen from Republicans previously. Paid leave for federal workers, sick leave during COVID, and in 2020, President Trump called for a version of paid family medical leave during his State of the Union address. Not a sweeping national program, but other policies that facilitate paid leave, such as the use of a future child tax credit, advance of Social Security benefits, and family savings accounts similar to HSAs. As in the states, though, a fundamental divide remains, mandatory versus voluntary. But the November election will determine the viability of some of these ideas. How will this play out in a potentially divided Congress if bipartisanship will be the only option? Luckily, bipartisan efforts in both the House and the Senate have been underway for quite some time. The House Bipartisan Paid Family Leave Working Group released its report outlining ideas with bipartisan appeal. a public-private partnership paid leave pilot program, small employer pooling, harmonization and coordination across states, and improving the 45S Fisher tax credit for paid leave.
Clearly, the work in the House is well underway, but the Senate is beginning to think about PFML in a bipartisan, bicameral way too. They released an RFP last year, and they're asking the right questions. For example, what should the federal role be in providing paid leave? What about the state-based system and benefit programs employers are already providing? Can a federal program learn important lessons from the states that have already done this? And maybe the biggest question of all, how should this be funded?
Recently, the Bipartisan Policy Center put forth a framework for a voluntary national paid leave minimum standard for multi-state employers. This proposal will surely be looked at by policymakers in Congress as it seeks to solve for the complexity that multi-state employers face within today's system. But this takes us back to the fundamental question mentioned previously. Is a voluntary incentive-based program sufficient for Democrats? What about the 2/3 of the states still without a program today? Ultimately, a divided government might actually bring both sides to the table to deliver something in the middle. Other groups, such as the American Benefits Council, have similarly proposed a national standard.
If it hasn't already, it's likely that some sort of paid leave is coming to a state near you. The East and West Coasts are nearly universally covered. Colorado and Minnesota are the outliers in the center of the country. Lawmakers from these states are proud of the benefits these programs have delivered. In the South and Southeast, a voluntary private paid family leave insurance model has taken off.
You can see why this has gained the attention of federal lawmakers. And while a few more states will debate the issue in 2025, a large swath of the country remains without a comprehensive paid leave program. Despite the uncertainty with the electoral outcome, one thing does seem pretty certain. State programs are here to stay, and lawmakers in Washington will be eager to protect what their states have built. The likelihood of doing away with the patchwork of complexity might be low, and no matter the outcome, paid family medical leave will be a hot topic both in Washington, D.C. and in the states in 2025 and beyond.